At some points in my career, I wish that some other athletes, which I consider friends, would ask me how I was actually doing. I've already achieved bigger things in my career than winning Olympic gold. If it ever comes to the point where it's like there is no possibility that you will win a race again, I will stop. There is no point for me to continue if I can't win races anymore.
It's a Viking victory! Henrik
Our guest today is one of the most precise and relentless technical skiers of the modern era. A racer defined by intensity, discipline, and a fierce commitment to mastery. This is Henrik Kristoffersen. Henrik, welcome.
Thank you very much.
It is so good to have you here. And as a commentator that's followed you since the beginning, a real honor. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Thank you.
Let's start with your story back at the beginning. Correct me if I don't pronounce this properly. Your story begins in Rælingen.
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 Rælingen,
I'm
yeah.
getting better.
Yeah.
Away from the traditional centers of Alpine racing. Your father, Lars, introduced you to the sport and eventually coached you himself. What do you remember from those early days? And what was that father-coach dynamic like? Because you're still the golden team today.
Yeah. I think I got my first skis, like Alpine skis, when I was 4.5, 5 years old. So compared to my son now, I started quite late. Compared to my brother, I started little later than what he did as well. But I always remember it as my kind of escape from normal life, escape from school. I always wanted to train. I was interested in a lot of things. I did motocross from when I was 6, if I'm not wrong, 6 until I was 11. I biked a lot, of course, as a lot of young boys. I also played football, and we did a lot of things, but it was always Alpine ski was always the main focus, the main goal. And of course, then during the summer, we trained a lot of dryland training as well, physical training, to be able to ski more, and we skied a lot during the winter. And so I think I started training properly from when I was about 6 years old. My dad was a coach for a group in Rælingen, in the ski club where I'm from, and then it just piled on, basically. I always was in Norway, we had this saying that you're a small pot with big ears, you know. I was always interesting to listen to what the adults were talking about and stuff like this. And I think I said the first time I was 8 or something that I think this was around 2002 when the Olympics in Salt Lake City was, because that's kind of my first TV memory from skiing, when Kjetil André Aamodt won the combine, which back in the days was the biggest thing you could win.
Yeah.
Now it's a little different. But that was like my first TV memory. And I think around that time I said that I wanted to be the best. Still not there. And as it looks at the moment, it's difficult to get there. But we started training. I trained a lot with people who were older than me. From quite a young age, and when you are 7, 8 years old and you train with people who are 5 years older than you, it's like 8 to 13. There's a lot of things happening. There's a big gap between the strength and endurance and everything, and I was always the last. I was always the weakest. I was always the slowest. But that kind of made me into who I am, together with my family, that if you want to succeed, if you want to achieve something, you have to work for it, you have to push further. And one thing that really stuck with me was that because when you're that much younger at such a young age than the other guys who are there, you are so much weaker. So to try to keep up, you cheat. like doing push-ups and stuff, you cheat because you can't keep up because you are so much weaker. But what my dad always said was that you can't just be on training. You actually have to train when you're at the training. And that kind of stuck with me for a very, very long time, until this day. Of course, now I'm a professional, older and everything, so it's a little different now, in terms of that you kind of know, but it stuck with me for a really long time. And I think when we were around 11 years old, I started training 2 dryland sessions a day when we had break off from school during the summer. And it's always been this, I've always been in this environment where you have to grow up tough. You have to pick up the glove and fight for it. It doesn't help to just lay down and feel sorry for yourself. And I think that's made me a lot into who I am. It's also caused some controversies, I would say, some problems. But I wouldn't change it for anything. That's who I am. That's who I'm brought up to be, and I'm proud of that. I'm really grateful to my entire family and my parents, especially, that I've been given the opportunity that I've been given. I'm not gonna say that I come from a family which were super poor, but we were also not wealthy. My parents didn't own a car for 54 weeks, a little more than a year, when I was young. And it was like lift ticket or paying the phone bill.
Yeah.
And usually the lift ticket was chosen, and I kind of didn't know when I was younger how tough it had been for my parents at time, but now I kind of have understood, since I also become older. So I'm really grateful for everything they have done for me in my career, and that's also brought me up to who I am today, and everything like this. And even with like what you started talking about, the father-son relationship, which can be tough at times, for sure. There's been moments where it's much harder to hear from your father that this wasn't good enough than what it is from just somebody who's a coach. And of course, in the heat of the moment, there are times that are really tough, but I will forever be grateful for, of course, my mom as well, but of course, what he's done in terms of my skiing career for me. And yeah, no matter how hard it's been at times, I will always, the day I quit, I will always be grateful for that.
It's a wonderful story. I mean, it's really quite touching. To
yeah,
be
a little
honest.
bit.
It does.
Yeah.
Sort of makes you a little bit teary. And
because I must say though, because we have this, I think outside we have this perception that we are like I talked a lot about it as well, that we're brought up hard, you need to fight for things and everything. But I think what's really important as well is that there's a human side to it as well, and there's always been a real fairness, especially from my dad's side about everything. And he's always wanted the best for me. And at times you have to be tough as well, but at other times most of the memories I have are good and fun memories. Of course, there are memories which are hard too. Yeah. But now as I'm older and everything, I'm more grateful for those memories than kind of feeling bad about them, to be honest. And I have more understanding of why. That's for sure.
Those are wonderful words, Henrik. And how does that relationship change? I get it. Father and son on the mountain, working hard. But now are you the best of buddies rather than this father and son relationship? Is it professional? Do you scream at each other? Do you fight with each other?
Sometimes a little bit, yeah. It's for sure changing over the years, because when you're as an athlete and a son, when you're young, you don't really know anything. I think in a general case in this sport, if you decide that you want to do good in this sport when you get old enough to decide yourself, it's too late. Like, you will always have exception from the rule, but if you decide when you're old enough and kind of mature enough to decide yourself, it's too late.
Yeah.
So kind of to accept that you get told to do things which you don't always agree about is something that starts when you are younger. And then it develops more into a conversation, and it goes from a one-way communication from dad coach to athlete son into him asking more questions to me about what I am doing and what I think about things, and to kind of point at things that could like open my eyes to doing things better. So that changes a lot throughout the career. I think it's quite natural as well. I think if you have this relationship that you have at the really young age when you become older, it can be hard. And you've seen that with a lot of father-son, mother-daughter relationship when they've been a coach earlier, that they've split up and there's been a huge split. There is one in Norway now and stuff like this, and there's been in different sports, and you had it. I follow motocross a lot, and it's happened there and everything. And it needs to change, but at the same time, you can't have too many yes people around, because if everyone just say yes to you, it can work for a while, but it will turn into you not doing what you're supposed to do, because humans are quite simple. Most of us, or all of us, choose the easiest way most of the time because the hard way is hard. But then you need people around with the foot in the door who doesn't let go and kind of says that sometimes you have to choose the hard way.
I mean, you're a fantastic couple. You really are a dynamic duo. Mm. Do you ever on the mountain say, okay, Dad, stop. I just want to tell you I love you?
No.
It's work, and you separate work from play as two clear columns.
No, we can't. It's at the moment, it's not possible to separate. At least for me, it isn't. And that's what makes it hard at times. Yeah. But it's like now it's been really, for me, it's been really nice to see as well that now that I have a son myself and everything, that I kind of see a different side as well when my son is there with my father. Of course, now that he's a grandfather and everything, and that's quite nice to see. And I've had these times myself where it's like we're doing something completely different, talking about something completely different, and nothing has to do with skiing and vacations and everything. But it's also like it's so much of this life who revolves around skiing, and you kind of have to be 24 hours, 7 days a week, 365 years. It's always in the back of your mind a little bit. So for me, it's really hard to separate. But like I said, I will always be grateful for it, even if it's hard at times. So, and even though there are moments and have been moments with skiing that's been really hard, when I'm done skiing, I won't have any bad feelings about anything. And this is like, in Norway, we have this thing called russ. When you're done with kind of high school, there's a month of celebration where everyone is drunk and blah, 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 and everyone does it. I didn't. I said when I started high school that I didn't want to. But then, of course, you get 3 years older, and then kind of all your friends and other skiers are going out and partying and stuff. And then I wanted to sneak out and do it. But he kind of caught me and refused. And to this day, I will forever be grateful for this, that I can say that I wasn't this russ, because he said no and he stood by it, and that's how it was. And that's something I've told in the past to several people, that I will for me now, this is cool to look back at. This is something I'm very happy about, and I'm really grateful for this. So, but yeah, I wouldn't say we're best of buds, but it's for sure the person I've spent the most time with probably the last 20 years plus, probably since I was born. So, but there is for sure a father and a son as well. Yeah.
He's just sitting over there for all of you people watching in. I don't think there's going to be a dry eye in the house. I have $1 million question when it comes to family. Who's going to coach Emil if he wants to be a ski racer? You or your dad?
My dad. If I hope, at least for the first couple of years. We'll see how long I continue skiing. Emil started skiing now this year in Sölden.
Wow.
Was the first time. And he was also in Sölden when we trained there before Levy. And on the car with me and my wife on the way down, he was like, Mom, Dad, I love skiing. He's a little bit more than 2 years old. So, my dad said that, or I've said, and people have said that, like, yeah, now he can start on the second round, you know, and take away all the mistakes he did with me, and then he just say he didn't make any mistakes. So I think if someone has made more mistakes, it's probably been me, myself, that's for sure. But I'm not gonna. I've never been forced into anything from my parents. That's quite important to say, because there is this, especially in Norway, there is this that parents who are involved in sport push their kids a lot, and it's like a lot of people talk so much about that the parents wanted more than the kids. I've never felt that way. I have never been, to this day, I've never been asked to go to training. I've never been pushed to go to a training. But when you're at the training, then it's a different story. When you're first there, then it doesn't matter if you are crying or feeling sorry for yourself or something. Then it's a certain amount of push there, that's for sure. So I think this is I think it's misinterpreted a lot. I think for sure there are a lot of parents who want their kids to succeed more than the kids actually want to. But I think there's also parents who are not pushing their kids, they are just helping their kids. And basically that's what my parents have done for me. So I will not push my son into anything, but if he decides to do something, then I hope I will be able to do the same for him as my dad has done for me. Or at least if he's there, then he can also help out with this. That's where, and my wife is also pretty strict about these things, so I'm sure she will push him quite a lot as well.
That's beautiful words. So let's talk about this rise from being this kid in the club, working with dad, to an international skier, because it came quite quickly, and this is where I first was introduced to Henrik Kristoffersen as a broadcaster. Youth Olympics, Junior Worlds, 8 medals, record breaking. How did those early wins influence your thinking, your mindset towards competition, or were you already completely in the focus? This is it. I'm not stopping here. This is just the first chapter.
I think it was harder to ski the national races in Norway when I was 12 than what it is now, to be honest.
Wow.
Because there will always be another World Cup race. Until I quit, then I can't ski it anymore, but there will always come another World Cup race. Of course, World Champs, Olympics are a little bit different because it's every second and every fourth year. But when you're in the age group, it's the youngest year shot and the oldest year shot. That's it. And then you kind of have to perform. Junior World Champs, I didn't feel that much on it, to be honest, because the first year I won in Roccarazzano, I was quite young, and I remember Mathieu Fevre and Stefan Leutz was kind of dominating the Europa Cup, and I'd done okay. I won in slalom and stuff, but I was still not doing that great in GS, in giant slalom, and then winning the Junior World Championship and stuff. But I think it came from quite an early age this about competing. I remember when I was like 10 years old and all the kids were playing at the start, throwing snowballs, everything. And my dad was very important for him that when we're at the start, we need to focus about what we're going to do. After the race, you can be a kid and play and throw snowballs and mess around. But when we're actually at the start, like 15 minutes before the race, you can take 15 minutes to focus and concentrate. I think that kind of turned me into a lot of people. I said a racehorse. But I can't really tell you why it's become like this and why my head has worked in the way it's worked. Is I've never had a mental coach or anything in terms of the sport, because I didn't want anyone to mess with it, kind of, because it's been working pretty well until now. As you get older, it's getting harder and harder. But yeah, it was even with Trofeo Topolino when we were really young. I remember there being in the youngest age group and then being in the oldest and winning in the oldest. I felt like that was almost more pressure than what it is now, in a certain way, in a different way, because that's, you're growing out of the age group and then you can't do it anymore. It's kind of the age group years, and then it turns into where you go into the FIS stage with doing FIS races, then Europa Cup, and then going into World Cup. I feel like it's 4 different stages that kind of flowed into each other a little bit. That's for sure.
I remember seeing you at those World Juniors for the first time on the telly, and I immediately went, holy smoke, this kid is going to be a rock star. I mean, you could see it there and then. And how old were you at Rock?
17.
Well,
yeah,
I mean,
17.
You looked like the real package then. And what we see today is, you know, exciting, entertaining, absolutely brilliant. What I also wanted to talk about from your roots and families, at a certain point, you moved from the national system to working completely independently with your father. How did that transition happen? What changed for you practically, mentally? And it was clearly the right thing to do, because here we are with 33 World Cup victories, nearly 100 podiums, and the story kind of speaks for itself. But when that actually happened, what did it represent?
So we didn't actually do this. This is now 6 years ago. As probably most people know, there's been some controversies, I would say, some problems for me with federation and stuff like this. I think what's important to remember is that I was brought up in a ski club where my dad was a coach, but he treated me equally to all the other kids. I didn't call him dad on the hill. I said Lars, because that was kind of, I think that was really important, that like you can't just, for him, but also for me, that you can't just focus on your own kid. If you're going to be a coach in a ski club, it needs to be equal for everyone. But there were also times where we wanted to ski more than what was kind of put up as trainings for the ski club. But we always said that anyone else who wants to join us can also join. There were people from other ski clubs on the other side of Oslo, which joined us as well. And there was always this sense of that we don't want to do anything special or just for ourselves. We just want to do the best possible for ourselves and everyone. And if people want to join that, that's fine. And I feel like we never wanted to stay in the way of anyone, but we also didn't want people to stay in our way. So I think that's kind of what has started it. And then to understand why this split happened and why I have my own group now where my dad is in charge, you have to go quite a long way back, because like I said, I was brought up in a ski club where my dad was a coach. Then I went to ski gymnasium on the other side of Oslo from where I'm born. So I come from the east side and that was on the west side. My dad was a coach there. The year before I started there was this pre-group that was going into the ski gymnasium, which my dad was a coach for. So then I trained 50% with him. That was first year into FIS, which is 1 year earlier than what they do now. Mm-hmm. So I trained 50% then with my dad and 50% with the youngest group in the ski gymnasium. Was me and Adrian Sejersted, who got this opportunity. Adrian's mother said no for him, but I was like 50-50 with my dad and the group at the ski gymnasium. And then when I went into the ski gymnasium, which is then the second year of FIS, my dad was coach for the ladies and I was with the men's group. There were actually 3 men's groups. I was in the middle one, I would say. So of course I always talked to him. I talked to him a lot and watch video and everything, but also had other coaches and stuff like this. And then because normally at that time you went 3 years to ski gymnasium in Norway. Mm-hmm. I did 4 because I was so much away from school that I asked to do 4, so I was able to do 4. So the 4th year, that was the year of Sochi, you know. I won Schladming, Sochi, everything. That was when I won Schladming, was 9 years and 10 months, 9 years and 10 months since Norway has won a slalom race the last time. Wow. And there, of course, when I came into the national team, there was Axel, who was the big star, and Kjetil Jansrud. And everything was evolved around the speed skiers, which at that time, I understand it's natural. That's how it is. The best guys always gets more than the guys who haven't proven themselves yet. And I totally understand that. What's important is before this, that when I was 17, like we talked about, I won 2 slalom races in Pamporovo, Europa Cup. My parents paid for my entire career until that. Of course, I had great support from ski brands, family, everything up to that point. But in terms of the federation, they hadn't basically 0 involvement. Everything was from ski club, ski gymnasium. And when I was 17, I won 2 Europa Cup races. That's when I came then into the Europa Cup team. So I wasn't on the Europa Cup team when I won 2 Europa Cup races, because there was a different financial situation in the Norwegian Ski Federation than what it is at this time. When I was then the next year, I was in the Europa Cup team the next season, so that's when I'm 18 years old. My parents paid the federation for me to be, paid a fee for me to be in the Europa Cup team. And I skied then into top 30 on World Cup start list in slalom. I scored points in GS. There's a funny story there. We can do that later. And then when I was 19 was the first year my parents didn't pay anything for me to ski. I was third in Levy. I was third in Adelboden. I was second in Kitzbühel. I won Schladming. I was third in Olympics. That was the first year my parents didn't pay anything for me to go skiing. Yes, I know I'm still quite young with 19 years old at the time, but still, just when you think about the results and everything, that was the first year. Now, and in other nations and federation and everything, people come in and it's totally different, you know. And then also coming in then, winning races, most things and resources being evolved around Axel and Kjetil. And yes, when I was 17 and hadn't won races, everything yet, I understood why. But then when you start winning races and the resources are still a lot on them and it doesn't change, then that creates issues, I would say.
Tension as well.
Creates tension. At the same time as well, you are in a group with other skiers, and there's nothing wrong with any of those other skiers. They haven't done anything wrong in that way. But at that time, I was the only one who was top 15 on start list. I was in both disciplines. I was a lot on the podium. I won races. You have to go to bib draws. You have to go to prize giving, press conferences, doping control. There's a lot of things who takes a lot of energy and a lot of time. And you have to find that time and energy somewhere. And then when you also go into the fight to try to fight with the then coming 8-time globe winner, big globe winner Marcel, and he has his own team around him. Everything is evolved around him saving as much energy as possible and doing as good as possible. And you look at that also creates issues, you know. So I think at a certain point there, when then Axel had the Red Bull helmet, I wasn't allowed to. It was just so much, and there's such a big story about it that I think people doesn't really understand, because if you just read it through Norwegian media or something like this, it puts me in a picture which is like, I only think about myself and blah, blah, blah. But it's kind of more that things weren't fair, to be honest. I've always, like I said, been brought up that you have to fight for everything you want to achieve, but you get what you deserve. And then when you don't get what you have then deserved, and other people have gotten it and you don't, that creates issues. So that's why kind of with the court stuff and everything, and then we decided that we split into our own group and do things kind of. I'm still a part of the Norwegian Ski Federation.
Of course.
I'm equally as much a Norwegian Ski Federation athlete as the other ones. I just have my own group. That's the only thing. But that's the backstory of everything, and there's so much there, and there were so many promises made of change and everything, but nothing happened. And if we're going to go through everything, we need a couple more hours. But yeah, I think there's a lot of things that people don't know, and there will probably be written a book in the future or something like this, so people will know the whole story when I'm done. Yeah, that's kind of why things are as they are at the moment. At the moment, how things are working now, there are different people than were back then and everything. We have a really good relationship with Sutti, the head coach now. I had a really good relationship with Christian Mitter for a long time, who's now the Alpine boss in Austria. And I even asked Christian to come after he stopped being the head coach for Norway, for the men's. I actually asked him to come back just as my coach several times. But yeah, it's the whole stuff has also changed me as a person. That's for sure, when you are in these situations.
Wonderful words. And it brings us on to the second part of this podcast, because some of the rivalries that you've had have meant that you've had to change the game. And as you were just describing, Hirscher comes, and not only is he a marvelous technical skier like yourself, but he comes with almost another level of professionalism. And so I would often say to journalists, all you're doing is making sure that the playing field is as fair as it can be, and may the best skier win.
Yeah.
And what you and then Marcel developed was some of the most sexy, entertaining, and bloody amazing ski racing that the sport, and all of a sudden, as a TV guy, the ratings are bigger for the slalom competitions than they are for the downhills, because the downhill's looking a bit same. And you and Marcel, let's have it on.
Yeah.
And the result, the sport wins.
Yeah, definitely.
And let's talk a little bit about it. I mean, first podium at 19, absolutely brilliant. Schladming, 45,000 people, that's the place to do it. They either love or you hate you there.
Yeah.
Let's go to Schladming first before we get into that rivalry with Hirscher. What was going through your mind on that night? Because I commentated it live, and I have to
that's a
admit,
long time ago now, you know.
Oh, but I remember it to this very day. I always talk about it in Schladming. It was amazing, Henrik.
First thing that needs to be said is that at the first race I won in Schladming, my dad wasn't there.
No.
My mom was there.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah. He wasn't there. He was actually, because at that time he was head coach of the Europa Cup Ladies in Norway. So he was actually in pitstall. I arrived in pitstall a couple of days later though, because we were going to Hochzeiger in pitstall to train after, and he was already there training. But yeah, my mom was actually at that race and my dad wasn't, which I think for her is kind of funny.
Yeah, special.
Yeah, it's kind of special. But no, I was the first time I was in top 7. Started with bib 1. I think I was second after the first run. Was far behind on the last split in the second run, but I didn't know at that time that this arc over the finish showed red and green. This people told me like after I won it 3 times. So I didn't know, but I think it's something special when you're 19, you win your first race in front of 45,000 in Schladming, in front of Marcel and Felix Neureuther, and then you get carried up on their shoulders in the finish area. That's
amazing.
That's pictures and something I will remember for my entire life. And I'm really grateful that they did. I didn't ask for it.
Yeah.
If you see closely on the pictures, you can see Marcel telling Felix that like we're going to do this. So no, that's for sure a big moment.
It's still clear in my mind, Henrik. I can still see that picture today.
Was very special, of course. Then Christian Mitter was also there, you know, and he's from Ramsau. I'm Darstein, 10 minutes from Schladming. So, and we trained a lot in Reitralm. I had another coach, Stefan Kornberger, which is from Reitralm, 10 meters from the gondola at the bottom, 10 minutes away from Schladming. So, and we spent a lot of time there at this point in my career. So that was something really special. Yeah. That's for sure.
No, it was amazing. And another one for me. I'm sorry, I'm kind of going through my history when it's about you, this podcast. 2016, Adelboden, boom. Wengen, boom. Kitzbühel, boom. At 24 years of age, how do you look back on that now? Because that, for me, was when, they loved you in Norway, and they've always loved you in Austria, but then they started loving you all over the world. You became a truly international superstar, winning the 3 biggest slaloms back to back.
Everything was so easy then.
Really?
Yeah, to be honest, it was. So in my entire career, I kind of always struggled in the preseason in like August, September, October-ish. And then things have kind of come along going into late November, December, kind of things start to roll a little bit. But yeah, I think we started in Val d'Isère actually at that time. I won Val d'Isère, then I won Madonna. I was second in Santa Catarina after Marcel, and then I won Adelboden, Wengen, Kitzbühel, and then Schladming.
Absolutely.
And that was like, things were flowing. I didn't have to do that much, to be honest.
Wow.
Things were just flowing. I remember actually Kitzbühel. I was 12th after the first run that year. I made 2 big mistakes. It was quite icy. And if you see my career, I haven't been the best on ice in general. But it was quite icy. I made 2 big mistakes in the first run. I think I was 9800s behind Fritz Stopfer and like a little bit more than 5/10 behind Marcel. I was 12th. I remember even talking to my dad between the runs. That's like, we were kind of laughing a little bit. It was like, 98, that isn't that much. We just won Madonna with over a second. It's like, come on, this is more than possible. Of course, then it was all in the second run, but things were flowing, that's for sure. You have certain periods, you are at this level, it doesn't happen very often, but when you have these periods, it's just, everything was just flowing, to be honest. I didn't have to think that much. And I wasn't particularly fast in training at that time either, but it was just ski.
Yeah, it was
to be
great.
honest. There was this kind of dominance, but I think it was also fair, to be honest.
Oh, it was good.
Because like both Marcel and myself sometimes were skiing really good. We're skiing really good technically and really good fast, and then you got rewarded for doing this. It wasn't just about risking,
What was obviously those Kristoffersen Hirscher years were some of the best years in my mind. I know you're buddies now. You work together now as well as train together. But back then, how did that rivalry shape you? And what did you think of Marcel? Because you looked like you were on the pathway to dominate the world, win everything. Then this little guy turns up and starts skiing very similar to you. Beautiful technique, attention to detail, precision, the name of the game. But what it seemed to do from my perspective is push you even more. And then you started pushing each other.
Yeah.
And we just loved watching it.
Yeah, I think we for sure pushed each other. Marcel was always really kind and fair to me, I must say. Like when you are at the level he was and did what he did, and there are so many people with so many different opinions in the world. So if everyone likes you and everyone agrees with you, you're lying to a lot of people. And I think Marcel didn't do that. So there might have been some people that didn't really like him that much. But to me, he was always really fair. He was really fair. I think maybe he could kind of relate a lot because he was quite young coming in with his father and same as me and everything like this. And I had a ton of respect for him, but I also felt like he had respect for me in every kind of way, at the inspection, at the prize givings. Like, of course, he wanted to beat me and I wanted to beat him, but there were never any unpleasantries or anyone trying to take someone out on things that you were sliding this hairpin too fast at the inspection, so you should be disqualified and stuff like this. It never happened. Because we focused on ourselves and we wanted to beat each other, and we wanted to beat each other fair. And for me, it was an honor, was a great duel. Of course, I would have liked to beat him more. I would like to have beaten him in the overall. But I did everything I could, and I couldn't have done more than what we did. Things could have been different in certain ways, but that's not... I tried to change things, but I couldn't. So what's most important to me is that I can look myself in the mirror and say that I tried everything I could and I didn't beat him, and that's okay. That's sometimes someone is better, and he was better, and I tried everything I had, and that's okay. That's how it is.
You created one hell of a show. You really did. It was spectacular.
Yeah.
Marcel retires. Do you then think the big globe's got to be mine? Marcel's gone. You have taken the sport to another level.
A little bit.
I was expecting you to win the overall globe, to be honest.
Yeah, a little bit. I must admit, a little bit. Yeah, I did. I think, like I said, I wanted to beat him in the overall. That was my goal, and I didn't. And like I said, that's fine. That's okay. I live fine with that. Of course, then the year after, I won the slalom globe. I won the GS globe. I didn't win the overall. COVID hit. 2 more tech races get canceled, then speed races. I skied less races than the guys who were ahead of me. I was 100-something points behind. Had 4 races to go, like both races in Kranjska. I normally done pretty good in Kranjska. I think I don't blame any of the athletes or anything, and I don't really blame anyone. The season stopped, and that's how it is. No one could have really changed that or foreseen it or changed anything. But that kind of ended it for me. Yeah. To be honest. Yeah. That's kind of when I said I don't care about the overall anymore.
Yeah.
To be honest.
Yeah.
I tried for so many years with Marcel, and that year I felt like there was a really good opportunity. And then when you kind of, I'm not saying I would have won it if we had gone to the end, but I didn't get the opportunity. And then I was kind of like, yeah, I'm done with this.
I think you would have won it, to be honest, my personal opinion.
So, yeah.
I think
but
you won it.
that we will never know, and there's no one to blame for it. That's just unfortunate circumstances. Like there's been a couple of in my career, I would say, maybe more than most, but that's how it is, and
that's why so many of them love you. Last question on Marcel, because I can hear all the listeners, all the viewers saying, "Go on, Nick, ask it, ask it. Go on, Nick, ask it." He's making this comeback, and do you agree with it? You and he are buddies. You and he are work colleagues. You and he share an awful lot now. And then he tells you he's going to make a comeback. As his buddy, what do you say? And as somebody who's followed him like I've enjoyed every part of your career, I don't want it to finish on a negative note. What are your thoughts, Henrik?
I was surprised when he called me and said he was doing a comeback. I was really surprised because he said for such a long time that he didn't want to. And a lot of people asked for a lot of years. And kind of when you have 8 globes in a row, you're kind of king of the world and you stop on top. What more do you need, to be honest? I was surprised, that's for sure. But I don't really have an opinion about it, to be honest. And it's kind of hard now when he's like the boss of the ski company and now skiing for the ski company and everything. And so it's the only thing is like with everything I said now, with him winning and then coming back and stuff like this, and I think most people ask it, is probably why. And like you said as well, it's like you won so much, you ended on top, and then coming back after 5 years, and then it's kind of like, why? He told me that's for fun, and I respect that. That's okay, for fun. But professional sports isn't always fun.
Absolutely, and I want him to be safe. I don't want him to hurt himself. He's a legend. He's entertained us. He's given so much, and then he tears his ACL, and then he's
but that part I wasn't worried about, and I'm worried about him tearing his ACL or staying safe or anything like this. That's not a big issue. But there's been so much opinion about the rules and stuff like this. I haven't really had an opinion about it. I'm at the point where it isn't a concern for me who starts after 30.
Yeah, and I'd like to see more focus with the second tier. I mean, whether it's called Europa Cup or whatever. So the Europa Cup should mean more.
Yeah, and it did.
It
did back then.
It did back then. That's very interesting. Yeah.
Because then, if I remember in Pamporovo, it was Reinfred Herbst.
Yeah.
Yuasa was there. It was like, if you won there, you could do pretty good in World Cup in general.
Yeah.
Also remember that the weekend after was Bansko World Cup, and I didn't ski Bansko World Cup because at that time you needed to wait for a new FIS list to come out before you got the FIS point. So I waited until Kranjska Gora to ski my first, because then I could I started 32, 34 or 33 or something. And then I was like, then you have a real shot at getting in.
Yeah.
If you start 75 in Sölden this year, I know the highest bib in Levy was 69, I think.
Yep.
Which is like, there has to be a certain things has to click for you to then get in to the top 30. But if you start 31, 32 to 35, you can almost do it every time, no matter how the conditions are. It doesn't need any special circumstances to do it. You can do it consistently, and then you will get in. And I think that should be the reward for the people who win the Europa Cup.
Yeah, no,
because
I
that
agree.
gives you the springboard into World Cup.
Yeah.
And it should be more important to think about the future and the young athletes than people are coming to the end of their career, like me, for instance.
Yeah, but I think we can find a better balance.
Yeah, but it's hard.
Yeah.
It's very hard, but I think how it is now, it shouldn't be like it is now.
Yeah, it's tough. Too tough.
It's not rewarding enough for the younger athletes to ski Europa Cup.
Yeah.
Unfortunately.
Watch this space. I've got some ideas for the Europa Cup that I'm hoping that we're going to develop. We are going to develop. Let's move on. The craft. I mean, you've described yourself as a race day animal, training. You sometimes show maybe 8%, and then all of a sudden you have this magical ability to hit top gear on game day. Are there any tips for the youngsters out there on how you achieve that? Because basically you described it with Marcel earlier. You're conserving your energy. You are preparing just enough because it's race day when 100% is needed.
About that, I don't know.
You don't know?
Because I don't know how I came to that point.
Well,
I don't know. What I always said is that you don't become world champion on training, you become it by training. But why I have been able to, the day before a race, be 2 seconds behind, and then the day after at the race be on the podium, I can't really tell you, because I don't really know. Of course, it's when the carrot is bigger, you know, you are willing to do more. And I think that's been a little bit my issue in my career as well, because I've skied too conservative and slow and bad in training, which I think I could have been even a better skier if I had pushed it harder in training at times. Not every time, but a lot of times. But why I have had, we will see how it goes for the future. I can't tell how the future goes, but why I've had this ability to kind of pull it out at the races, I can't really tell you, to be honest. I'm not. It's not like one certain thing that I can point that's made it like this.
That's fascinating. Because as a commentator, and all the commentators say, Kristoffersen's next in the gate, never say never. Anything, whether you're 12th, 9th, 15th, 17th, you've put in some second run charges throughout your career that have been truly remarkable.
That you need the abilities for, though. That you need to be a certain skier to be able to do. You've seen Marcel do it. You've seen Marco do it. I've done it. And you need to be a certain skier to do it. And when you've done it like Marcel, Marco, or myself several times, it's not luck. That's having the ability that you have this extra gear. That most people don't have, and that you are able to bring this gear for a whole run, because most people are able to ski as fast as the fastest guys, 3, 4, 5, 6 gates, but to do it a full slalom run, especially, that's not a lot of people can do that to a certain extent. So like I think what stands most out for me is maybe Madonna a few years ago.
Yeah.
When I was 12, I was like 130 something behind. Because one thing is like Daniel Juhl in Chamonix, when you are 30th after the first run, you are 2 seconds-ish behind, and you start first, and the conditions just deteriorate like crazy.
Yeah.
Then it's like, there are reasons, you know. Same with Lucas in Wengen when he started 29, the conditions, like, it deteriorates so much. But you've seen it sometimes with Marco when he Schladming last year or something, when he did a big mistake in the first run and came back to third in the second run, I think. It's not about having an advantage with conditions or anything, because you're basically starting 20th or 18th or something, and then you're in the middle of the shite, I would say. So that's just sometimes the best skiers are able to bring out these things, and you could see it a little bit when they have nothing to lose.
That's a good way of putting it.
Yeah. Some people have the ability then to go a little overboard. So
great words. Let's move on to the icy slope. And we've asked a friend of yours, I'm sure you've seen this on the podcast, to send in a few questions. And he's got 3 questions. He's actually a bit of a rival of yours. And, well, you tell us who it is, and hopefully you'll answer his questions. Who is it?
Mr. Felix.
Hey, Henrik. So my question is, would you prefer getting your ass kicked in slalom by a German or by an Austrian?
Ooh, good question. I don't know. I'm like almost half Austrian now, though, since I lived in Austria for so long. I've been getting my ass kicked more by Austrians than Germans in my career in slalom. That's for sure. Felix have beaten me sometimes as well. But to be honest, it doesn't really matter, to be honest. It's the same thing as saying that when you win, it doesn't matter who's second, kind of. And when you're second, it doesn't matter who actually wins. Of course, when you think about globes and points and stuff like this, it's for sure matters. But I don't know, very hard question. It was maybe harder back in the days for me to be beaten by Marcel than by Felix, though.
I think.
So
let's go to question
that's
2.
A tough question. So
my second question is if you are still puking at the start, because I saw that quite a couple of times when we were racing together. So do you still have that or not anymore?
Yeah, probably less. I still have it, but less than before. There was one time in Kitzbühel where Felix was actually standing next to me, and I think that was the first time he saw me puke. I think he asked me afterwards if I was sick or something. But it's like James Hunt, the old Formula 1 driver. He puked before the start. So I think it's just, of course, I'm nervous and everything. But I feel like it's more the stress. The body can't really handle the stress of everything. And then I start coughing, and then sometimes it just comes, or most of the times. In Sölden, I think it happened second run, not first run.
Wow.
Levy was first run, or both runs.
Wow.
Last year at the end was almost nothing. So it varies a lot, to be honest. I would like to avoid it, though, to be honest, because it is a strain on the body. That's for sure.
Yes, exactly.
So I would like to avoid it, but harder said than done.
Yeah, you're in the same club as James Hunt, one of the best Formula 1 racing drivers of all time.
For sure.
Question 3.
Last but not least, you are also a father.
Yes.
You have 1 child now?
Yes.
So I have 4.
Yeah, I know.
So what about you guys? Would you do that? 4 kids?
No.
Yes or no?
No. Force too much, Felix. Force too much. Me and my wife, Tonje, we actually met his wife because I think she's half Norwegian. She speaks fully fluently Norwegian.
Wow.
I actually met her on the plane this summer from München to Oslo. She had 4 kids with her. I think Felix was driving. The youngest one was like a couple months old, I think. That looked a bit like a hassle. So 4, no. More than 1, yes. But 4, I've said that we're going to stop at 2. If you go to 3, the risk of twins, then you get 4. I don't know. Well, I'm very happy where we are at the moment. But 4, that's too much. Leif Christian Haugen,
Yes.
the old Norwegian skier, he told me that 1 is the first one is a little hard because it's the first one. Second one is quite okay because you've done it before. 3, it's like 10.
Oh.
Because you are 2 parents,
Yes.
so you can take 1 each. But when there's 3, there's another. So with 4, I don't know what he's doing at the moment, to be honest. So.
Felix, those are fantastic questions. Thank you so much. Really, really good. Let's go into our penultimate round here, Henrik, and let's talk about what's next. Here we go. You know, we're about to get going with the 25 season. You're back at the top of your game in slalom and giant slalom, to be honest. 4th Crystal Globe at the end of 2025. Just magnificent again to follow. A double in Kranjskogora. I mean, there are so many stats. I could go on forever. What sort of unlocked the form of last season, and are you ready to carry it forward into the 2026 season?
I'm not that happy with last season, to be honest. Yeah. I know it's probably for a lot of people strange to hear and everything, since I won the Globe and stuff like this, but I wasn't really that happy at the end of last year, end of last season.
Surprised.
At the World Cup finals, you could see I was done.
Yeah.
I was physically and mentally done. Of course, in Hafjell, I was sick, and then you go straight to the US, and then it's the pressure of having to fight for the Globe. And I said that before, that I already won 3 slalom Globes, so let the best man win. And if Loic or Clément beats me, they have deserved it, and I still stand by that. But of course, for me, it would have been a failure if I didn't win it. When I was leading with 50 points before the last year race, it would have been a failure. But last year was way too much up and down. There was a lot of races who worked well, but there were way too much inconsistency. There was way too many races who were not working. Things weren't working how they should have been, and that drains you mentally. When you think that you found something and that you're on the right way, and then day after it just doesn't work, that's very challenging, very hard, and that drains you mentally. And after last year, I was completely done. It's just little bit too much up and down, which creates a lot of strain mentally. But yeah, where to go next? That's a very good question. When I was like 6, 7, 8 years ago, I said I was going to stop after probably this season. Then I said I'm going to continue at least until Crans-Montana after the World Champs in 27, because then 28 there's nothing, but then it's the World Champs in Norway in 29, and then when you do 29, why not do 30 with the Olympics? And then it's like, but probably yesterday I said I'll quit now because things weren't working, and then you're tired, and I need to find the base of my skiing and everything gelling together like 80-85%, where it's that you can be consistent. That will keep me going for longer. And of course, if it ever comes to the point where it's like there is no possibility that you will win a race again, I will stop. There is no point for me to continue if I can't win races anymore. I've won enough and been enough on the podium to where 4th place is a disappointment. And it's an expectation from myself, and it's an expectation from the public that if you're not on the podium, it's a bad result.
Yeah,
and
I understand.
Then it's like, if you then can't do those results anymore, why continue? I hope I will be able to, for sure. But yeah, and I feel like the sport has changed in the last years, to be honest. I talked about it earlier when Marcel stopped. A lot of things changed, and now we're talking a lot about safety and everything. There's been a lot of things about safety. Of course, I think there are the discipline with most injuries is GS, giant slalom. Of course, the worst injuries happen in downhill. But I can't really talk about Super G or downhill. I don't do Super G or downhill. I won't do it either for the rest of my career. Even though I scored points in Super G at one point, which I'm happy about, but I won't do it. So I can't really talk what they should change or anything, because I'm just a TV viewer at that point. But in slalom and GS, I've done it for quite a while. I'm at the moment the most successful slalom skier on the World Cup, and I've been pretty okay in GS at times. And I think there are things you can do which are quite easy to change how risky things are, to be honest. First of all, there should be a certain standard and certain change on the course preparation. There's way too often where there's a big difference in the conditions from start to finish. It's too inconsistent, because if you have parts that are icy, really slick, and you have parts that are dry, all athletes would choose to go a more aggressive setup where it's icy, because if you don't have grip on ice, you don't make the next gate. Yeah. But then when you come to the parts where it's aggressive, it's really challenging for your knees and back and everything, because then things grab so quick and it grabs too fast. And the fact is that when you put a lot of water in, there is a higher risk of it being inconsistent. There's a much higher risk of parts being more slick and icy and parts being less slick and icy. Like skis are made for snow. Yeah. They aren't made for ice. Yeah. We aren't on ice skates.
That's very good words.
So yeah.
Let's go with one more question, Henrik, and then I want to finish off with a bit of rapid fire, a bit of ping pong. I've got to go to the Olympic Games. Silver in 2018, bronze in 2014. You were unlucky not to get the gold in both of those races, because I commentated both of them.
Yeah, I know. That's actually, let's talk about, because you're probably going to ask, what about now? You know, you're missing the gold and everything. I know what's coming. But first, like 2018 in Pyeongchang, the slalom. Afterwards, maybe one of my best moments, to be honest. Like where I felt that I was behaving like an adult, I would say. One of my proudest like TV interview moments, and I've had my fair share of interview moments, I promise you. But it's like what I said is like I was leading after a first run. Yeah, I tried, I failed, and that's okay. It happens. And yeah, I tried, and that's what I said in the interview afterwards. I think there are so many people who's, after they have failed, they stay on TV, and yes, it's Olympic every fourth year, and they stand crying and everything. It's like, why? Yeah. I tried, I did my best, I failed, and that's okay. I have only myself to blame, and that's okay.
Less than a tenth of a second, fourth position.
Yeah, in China, was fourth. That's one of my more disappointing moments, though. Okay. China. Yeah. Like I said, Pyeongchang was after race one of the proudest, and China slalom was one of the more disappointing. Because there was quite flat in the slalom up top, and normally I'm not the best at the flats. I'm normally best where it's difficult and steep. I skied really good in the first run, was second behind Strolls. Second run, I skied really good on the flat, on the top in the second run, and then I freeze in the pitch, which has always been my strong side. Yeah, that has maybe been the lowest point in my career, was after that race, because my whole team with my dad and coaches at that time, Jørg Råten Jojo was my coach, which is coach for Wendy Holdner now, which I would still wish was my coach. They stayed at another hotel with outside the athletes village with the service guys and stuff, and I think I've never felt so alone as I did at that time, so disappointed and alone. That was maybe the lowest moment in my career, to be honest. Way worse than me skiing out in Pyeongchang.
Yeah.
Way worse. So I remember sitting in the athletes village, and of course Sebastian got third. Very happy for him. Did a great run, everything. Clément as well with the gold. Schultz with the second place. Like, take nothing away from them. But that I froze in the pitch and kind of threw it away because that's what I did. That's maybe one of the lowest points.
And does that give you the motivation? A DNF in the second run in 2018, fourth position in 2022, and here we go, 2026.
I don't really think about it at the moment, to be honest. No, I think the best way to be prepared for a championship and going into Olympics is to do as good as possible in the races before. And then you need to focus about those races and not the Olympics. In an endurance sport, it's completely different, where you kind of need to peak the physical shape. In alpine skiing, where it's a technical discipline, the best way is to come in being in the rhythm, in the flow, stuff like this. So I've had a better career than most until the point where I'm now. I can be proud of everything I've done. And I will for sure try to do my best. But my life doesn't end with that, to be honest. If you asked me 10 years ago, it might have had. But I think there are bigger achievements I've already achieved bigger things in my career than winning Olympic gold, to be honest. I think I've done things that are way harder than to win that gold in a different way, hard than winning that gold. Because that's one day every fourth year, it's one race. You are probably 30 athletes who's risking everything, and someone's going to be the favorite. And yeah, it's probably harder to be the favorite because you are expected to do it. And but yeah, winning Adelboden, Wengen, Kitzbühel and Schladming in the same year was way harder than winning the Olympic gold, that's for sure.
I still think this story may have a happy ending. 2014 bronze, 2018 silver in the giant slalom. I still believe it.
Maybe we go until 30. Maybe there's another shot after. We will see.
Now there's people screaming now saying, yes, Henrik, 2030, yes, do it. Please do it.
Maybe I quit after Gürgel. Maybe I quit after 2030. Like, I'm at the point now in my career where things are getting more challenging than what they were before. You kind of get this... there's a Norwegian old biker called Kurt Asle Arvesen. He has stage win from the Tour de France and stuff. I remember he told me that you get this like suffer bag when you are born or start with your sport, and then you stick a hole at the bottom and it runs out, and at some point it's empty. I'm not saying that point is now, but it's getting closer, that's for sure. And it's a natural thing though.
Yeah, I understand.
For sure.
But on behalf of all of your fans, I have to say, please don't go. Please don't go.
We will see. We'll see.
Let's finish up with some rapid fire. Quick as you possibly can with these answers, so people can learn just a little bit more about, as we say, what tickles your fancy. Okay, you ready?
Yep.
Rapid fire. Schladming night race or Kitzbühel slalom?
Schladming night race.
Wow. GS or slalom, if you had to choose one?
Slalom.
Oslo or Salzburg?
Salzburg.
Attack or patience?
Attack.
Precision or instinct?
Both.
Training alone or training in a group?
Training alone.
Hardest course on the circuit?
Kitzbühel.
Best advice your father ever gave you?
Oh, I have so many though. But that was not rapid. But you can't just be at the training. You actually have to train when you're at training.
I love those words. That is such a good one. The worst advice you've ever been given?
Worst?
Oh,
I don't know. I probably don't remember them. So I have no idea. I don't know. Buying expensive things.
That's a good one. That's a great answer.
The best advice I've probably given myself, though, is to young athletes, is don't try to look cool.
Yeah.
Don't try to look like a World Cup skier. Don't try to look cool. Try to do the correct things.
And you learnt it here, kids. You learnt it here. Motocross or mountain bike?
Motocross.
Tomba or Hirscher?
Hirscher.
Bodie or Herman?
Oh, Herman. Sorry, Bodie. Sorry. So,
your best rival, Felix or Marcel?
Marcel. Sorry, Felix. I really like you, but sorry.
Quiet night at home or celebration
Quiet
after a win?
night at home.
Yeah, I didn't even
7 days a week.
The skier who's pushed you the most?
Probably Marcel.
Yeah. The skier who understood you the best?
Oh, that's a hard question. That's a really hard question. I don't know. That's very hard. I think in some way Marcel probably understood me.
Yeah.
But in other ways, I don't know. Maybe Loic. Loic's a really good friend, so he kind of understands a little bit. I don't know. Very hard. Probably some of the people I skied with when I was younger.
Good answer.
So yeah.
And where are we here? Norwegian ski culture. One word.
Parents.
Now that is a good answer. Let's keep picking it up. Overall globe or Olympic gold?
Overall globe.
The most annoying questions journalists like me always ask.
Are you ready?
The question you wish someone would ask you.
How are you feeling? I don't know, actually. Would ask me, yeah. I don't know. That's not journalist, but at some points in my career, I wish that some other athletes, which I consider friends, would ask me how I was actually doing. So,
that's a great answer. How would you describe your biggest flaw?
Not doing what I'm told at times.
Your best quality?
Doing what I'm told at times.
How do you describe yourself?
I would describe myself as fair, with the temper. And if you are nice to me, I'm nice to you. If you're an asshole to me, I'm an asshole to you. And that I take care of the closest people around me.
That is a fantastic
I hope they would say so. I hope they would agree. So yeah.
Henrik, thank you. Honesty, precision, and as always, clarity today. Your journey reminds us that mastery is not a moment, but it is a lifetime of intention. It has been a very, very interesting and wonderful afternoon. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
And to everyone listening, thank you for joining us. Subscribe on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube, and all platforms for more stories from the Athletes World Cup. On behalf of the legend, still going, Henrik Kristoffersen, and myself, Nick Fellows, many thanks for your company. It's bye for now. Alpine Pulse is an official podcast of the FIS, produced by Maniac Studios.